Okay, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Big East Coast podcast, September 3rd, 29th, 29th today,
29th.
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 Talking about St. John's, some other stuff. I'm Rob, that's Chris. We will have Andrew Padyk joining us shortly. Nice to be back. If you're watching live, thank you. If you're listening later on iTunes, thank you also. So what's up, Chris?
Not too much. Pretty easygoing Thursday here. We had a pretty active day yesterday on the site. If no one was paying attention, we had about, I think it was like 8 or 9 posts go up. So, what's an off season? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, I mean, we really didn't have a dead period this year because we did Olympic stuff and, with the draft and all that, and Villanova playing obviously into early April. No, we really didn't get the traditional dead period that you are used to.
Yeah, we've been pretty active, and I suspect that as the month of October approaches, and then of course November, we are only fixing to get even more active. So please be sure to keep your dial tuned over to BigEastCoastBias.com. Remember, we are 100% free all the time, every day of the week, 24/7, 365, 366 in leap years, which is this year. So,
Yep, yeah. And, just real quick before Andrew hops on and we dive into some more of the St. John stuff, some more general Big East stuff concerning an injury to a friend of not only the website, but both of us, and I think you know where I'm going with this.
do I?
Our little four-legged friend in Indianapolis had a partial ACL tear.
Yeah.
And,
I saw that. That's troubling.
Yeah, he's not going to miss any time in the regular season, but he is going to miss Butler's homecoming, which, that's a shame. He's got to be careful.
Yeah, that's unfortunate news for Tripp, but hopefully he heals up quickly.
Yep. And some other just nuggets to touch on. Xavier Tillman is picking tomorrow, Friday, between Michigan State, Purdue, and Marquette. So that's something to be on the lookout for. We'll have something for you about that. Andre Raffis was going to pick tomorrow, but he delayed it. So he's got Georgetown, Seton Hall in on him. So we'll see when he ends up picking. And Xavier has a 2017 center visiting this weekend, so that's fun.
Yeah, as far as Tillman and Raffis go, it looks like I would guess that Raffis probably has the higher likelihood of committing to a Big East school right now than Tillman. Tillman right now is projected to go to Michigan State, who is currently in the lead for Brian Bowen, a 5-star forward, the top player in Michigan, who had Creighton in his top 6. Also something we touched on yesterday on the website, in case you missed that.
Yep.
Creighton getting in the final cuts for 5-star players. Welcome to the year 2016, and welcome to the new edition of the Big East.
Yep, it's a new world.
Yeah, I'll say.
So yeah, that's where we're at, just with some general Big East stuff. Media Day coming up. That'll be fun. We'll be there.
Yep. And please excuse my my co-host's voice right now. He's a bit under the weather, but
I am
fighting through it.
I'm struggling. I do have my drink though. Gonna try and keep the throat nice and fresh, and hopefully get through this.
Yep. I have the remnants of this. I was drinking it before.
Oh, there you go. See, we have a lot of drinks on here. We both have Cub stuff. It's an exciting time.
Very much. Very much. I was very pleased with Mark Teixeira hitting a walk-off yesterday to spoil the Red Sox fun, even though, likelihood of my team going to the playoffs is very low right now.
Yeah. What is that?
What?
Nothing. Like the Slack chat is just popping right now, and I keep getting a little notification in my headphones, and I'm just gonna have to close that.
Yeah.
All right, let me invite Andrew here, and then we'll get cracking on St. John's.
Good stuff. Do you want me to just kind of lead us into that while you do that?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right. So, as most everyone knows by now, there's someone different roving the sidelines at St. John's. That would be former two-time Big East Player of the Year, Chris Mullen. I think it might actually be three-time. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. Now that I may have gotten that mixed up, I'm looking that up now. Let's see. I think he. Okay. Apparently, there was a politician named Chris Mullen also.
It was
in
3 times.
England. It was three-time. Okay, so three-time Big East Player of the Year. Chris Mullen, former member of the Golden State Warriors as well. He is the head coach for St. John's, and his first year didn't exactly get off to the most spirited of starts. Although they started off 7-3, wins most notably over Syracuse.
Yeah.
It's Final Four representative Syracuse, mind you, as well as a win over Rutgers. They started off 7-3, and then from there would only win one more game for the rest of the season, finishing up at 8-24. Their final game being a 101-93 loss to Marquette. Certainly some talent on this team. A little bit of disassemblance, I would say, with everything trying to gel together. But 2016 looks a little bit more promising for them.
Yeah, I mean, going into last year, they lost, that last team that Steve Lavin had, it was a lot of seniors, and then, Rasheed Jordan and Chris Lebeckman didn't stick around. So, you're losing your top 6 or 7 guys, and, Mullen didn't take over till, I think, the end of March, too, so you got to factor that in. All right, it looks like we got Andrew here.
Yep.
Hello?
There we go. What's up, Andrew?
There we go.
Oh. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. I love this stuff.
Yeah, we were just kind of touching on last year how it didn't go well, but, there were some positive takeaways from last year. I think Federico Mussini had a real strong showing. And I think the other 2 freshmen in Yakwe and Sema actually showed that they could be a nice building block for the future, too. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, the funny thing with Mussini is because of the absence of Lovett from the roster due to his whole issues with his eligibility, Mussini had great stretches, but he was also playing so much out of position that we never really got to see what he can do because he had to cover for Lovett in this stretch.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. And, this year with Lovett back and, a couple other guards coming in that we'll talk about later, you should probably be able to see Mussini more in a role he's more comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Chris, I don't know if you had anything to add about maybe the 2 big men or...
Yeah, I really liked what I saw from both Yakwe and Sema. Both didn't play full seasons due to some injuries that each had, but both showed a lot of promise, especially Sema, 6'11", who is a very good shot blocker, as well as Kasum Yakwe, who came up with the nickname Kasum Blockway because of how stout he was at protecting the rim. And both players finished in the top 20 in the country in block percentage last year per Kemp Pomeroy's site. Yakwe coming away with a block percentage of 11.1, and Sema coming away with a block percentage of 10.4. So you like to see good defensive stretches for each of them, and that's going to be pretty pivotal for them going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a new look team this year. We could get into that real quick. Really, Chris Mullen and his staff did a real nice job with the recruiting classes. Plus, having Levette this year, landing Shamori Pons and kind of starting to get back to hey, we're going to recruit New York City again. We're going to get these guys to stay around here, and that's big if they can do that going forward.
Yeah, Shamori Pons is actually the best recruit that St. John's has gotten in the New York City area since 2011. So going forward for Mullen, that's really big because for a while it was almost like St. John's was going in the New York City area, but wasn't really digging up the best talent. It was just like, we're going to find these guys, but let's just keep some kind of like plateaued course. But with Pons, that's like, it's really good for now and for the future of the program.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think that the name, I think it's Mo Harkless, who was their last like highly touted recruit from New York that they got. Yeah. So yeah, Pons is gonna definitely be a game changer for them. A very good combo guard, 4 stars, right out of New York City. He'll jump in and be able to start right away. Well, we'll talk about that later because I know we were asked about what we think the starting lineup will be for St. John's. I definitely think he's going to be factored in there for sure, along with Musini and Lovett. So he's definitely an instant impact player for them this year. Will definitely help them in some areas of need that they have.
Yeah, and I mean, even the 2 guys that they got that aren't going to play this year, and Marvin Clark and Justin Simon, that's really good sign for the future too. I mean, Justin Simon was one of the top players last year, kind of never fit in at Arizona, and now he's got a chance to kind of reinvent himself here.
Yeah.
So just kind of going back to Chris Mullen for a second, what do you guys think? I mean, it's hard to judge based on just record last year, but you think he's doing a good job so far based on what he had?
It's really tough to say. Last season for St. John's was their worst season since the first year of Norm Roberts when they went 9-18. And again, that period in St. John's wasn't that good because the year before they went 6-21 in the Mike Jarvis into like interim Kevin Clark year. But also because I did some number crunching last year, St. John's opponents against St. John's averaged 77.3 points per game against the Red Storm. That was the worst opponent points per game total since the 95-96 season under Brian Mahoney, when opponents were averaging 78.6 a game against St. John's. So it's almost, one of the takeaways I like to think is that this season, I know no one wants to say bad seasons need to happen, but going out of the Lavin era, which was just like a constant a few good seasons, but no like real growth in the program, that it needed like this flush out season, and now just to go up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. And Chris Mullen's a guy, he's got the name recognition, I think, even still with players today. And, a big thing, I think the biggest thing that he did last year, and it's not even an in-game thing, when the Warriors came to New York, he had them all come in and, meet with the Red Storm and stuff. And that's big going forth for recruits, hey, I can, meet Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or whatever. And, my coach is a guy who knows what it takes to get to the NBA. And, I think that's big. I think that's bigger than anything, like I said, he did on the court last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, when they hired Chris Mullen, people were like, oh, well, what college kid is going to really care about Chris Mullen? What college kid is going to care about, the history of St. John's? They weren't really alive when, he was at the top of his game. But like you mentioned, Rob, the crucial thing here is Chris Mullen's network. And he has connections, obviously, with the Warriors. And, they are obviously a very major team right now in the NBA. Have gone to back-to-back finals, one in 2015. And they have the best players in the world with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. And Curry obviously has made a major impact in basketball right now. And if he has the opportunity to bring them in for practice every time that they're in the New York area, that's a good sell. Just like Georgetown could very easily bring in Allen Iverson, for instance, whenever they want, because he obviously has connections with that school. So that much of an off-court factor, I think, is a big thing going forward for St. John's and how Mullen is as far as recruiting goes, because that's something that he can bring to the table that maybe someone else can't. Like obviously John Calipari has LeBron James or whatever, and that's obviously major in its own right. But the Warriors are on that kind of level too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think it also.
No, go ahead,
sorry.
Andrew.
I think it's also having Mullen back at St. John's too is big, because he's literally their guy. There's who other than Mullen, who else could name wise bring into the program? Ron Artest maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't think they would really want to do that.
No.
Yeah. But also the other thing too, because parents would most likely factor into where a player wants to go. They most likely were alive when they were young adults when Mullen was playing in the NBA, and most likely when he was at St. John's as a college kid, they could factor into that saying, that's Chris Mullen. When he was at St. John's, there was no one else like him.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, I think going into last year, everyone knew that, it was going to be one of those transition years, and, you just had to try and find the silver linings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
although,
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that, it is very tough to judge Mullen on a, on-court basis, because he was dealt a really rough hand last year. But as the talent begins to transition in, by the end of year 2 here in 2016, 2017, and then furthermore at the end of year 3, I think we'll definitely be able to get a better gauge on where he is as a recruiter and as an X's and O's guy, and how things shape up on the court and how he's able to manage all the talent that they're going to be assembling there in Jamaica, Queens.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, he's got a fairly decent leash just because he is Chris Mullen, and St. John's hasn't had an athletic director in about a year, which apparently they're close to finding one, which is good. But I think also, Mullen's relationship with Luke Arneseka, it would be hard to relieve him of his duties anytime soon, especially with what Carnesecca still means to the program.
Yeah. One other positive thing from last season is St. John's did go 4-1 against other teams in New York State. I mean, that's a very small takeaway, but turning over every rock and stone for successes, it's a nice flag to fly.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because there's good players all throughout New York. I mean, it's not just New York City, so you want to put your flag down kind of all throughout.
Yeah.
All right, so looking at this year, they get Minnesota in the Gavitt games. That should be. I don't really know what to think of Minnesota ever. Then they go to Atlantis, and that should be kind of tough. But then after that, I mean, there's some winnable games left in the non-conference portion where you could definitely see some growth this year from last year.
Yeah. The battle for Atlantis games is really that stretch. Hopefully they get past the Baylor and VCU games, but that whole stretch is really we're gonna throw you in the deep end to see how you can do against some of the better, if not best, programs in Division I has to offer at this point. And the game against Minnesota, although the last time they played Minnesota was a weird game because that was during the NIT season tip-off in 2015, I think. Yeah. And that was when Minnesota had players suspended. One guy was being investigated for something. I can't remember off the top of my head. But hopefully Minnesota will have a full like roster for this game. But other than that, you have the traditional game against Fordham, and what I like to call the Tri-Borough game, because Fordham plays in the Bronx, and St. John's plays in Queens and Manhattan. All three boroughs are connected by the Tri-Borough Bridge. They play LIU, and rounding it off, there's the game against Syracuse.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's like we just talked about, scheduling these local teams, that's really good for your program. I mean, you're playing your teams from Brooklyn or the Bronx or, what have you, and, it can make an impact. And not to mention, as a recruit, you're playing in, 2 or 3 NBA stadiums every year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something too. I'd probably, 3 or 4 actually, because, Marquette, Georgetown, and then obviously the Garden, and they got the Barclays game this year.
Right.
So I think that's a lot for recruits too.
Yeah, it's definitely a big sell. Like, you get to play as a college player, and then hopefully you'll get to play as an NBA player.
Yeah.
It should be interesting too, because let's see, looking at it, the Syracuse game is up in the Carrier Dome too this year, and St. John's will be riding a 2-win streak against that. Also, this game is the first time Chris Mullen meets Jim Boeheim as a head coach. Last time they crossed paths was when Mullen was a player and Boeheim was a spry and younger head coach.
Yeah, and I mean, that's Boeheim's last game against St. John's too, so there's a lot on the line there, really. So yeah, I mean, it's a good non-conference schedule this year. There's room for to show some improvement over last year, and yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do prediction right now in terms of where you think they're going to finish, but I think obviously the main goal has to be winning more than 10 games this year, and
Right.
I think in the 14 to 16 neighborhood would be really great for them.
Yeah, I think if they get to at least 10, no, actually not 10, 12 wins on the season, I would write that off as a small success. I know that's kind of like very low key, but 12 is a really good number to reach, because once they get to Big East play, there's going to be a few like growing pains with that.
Oh yeah, because I mean they're still probably one of the bottom 2 or 3 teams of the conference. I mean, even with all the growth they made over the offseason, I mean it's hard when everyone else got a lot better too.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with playing in the Big East is it's such a veteran-based conference, and it's when you're like rebuilding, you're just going in the deep end regardless. No floaties, anything.
Yeah. Chris, you got anything about the schedule here?
I'm looking at it, and honestly, I think that best case scenario for them after non-conference, I think best case scenario is probably 9-4. Because I think that they have winnable games against Bethune-Cookman, Binghamton. I think that they can beat Minnesota. I'm not really sure where they're really at, where the Gophers are really at right now. So I guess that can be like my swing game. Battle for Atlantis, I think that's going to be a rough go for them. I think they can go 1-2 and win whatever final game that they have. I don't really give them much a chance against Michigan State. Obviously, crazier things have happened. Baylor and VCU will be a tough task, but whoever they play in their final game on the 25th, I'm going to give them a win there so they don't go 0-3. And then Delaware State at Tulane, which is kind of bizarre. And then games against Cal State Northridge, I think they can get back at Fordham after they lost in the Bronx last year. I'll give them a win against LIU Brooklyn, and then loss against Penn State, and then at Syracuse. So Orange will get the revenge on them. So I think that 9-4 right there would put them in a pretty decent spot compared to where they were last year when they were 7-4, 7-5, wherever they were at heading into Big East play.
They were 7-6 at the end of non-conference play last year.
Yeah. No, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think 9-4 is their best case scenario. Realistically, they could wind up in the same spot, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were at 9-4.
I think one of the best case scenarios, just looking at the battle for Atlantis again, after they play Michigan State and then either Baylor or Virginia Commonwealth, is hopefully getting their last game against Old Dominion or LSU,
Yeah.
which are the two weaker teams on that side of the bracket, because either playing Wichita State or Louisville is not that appetizing after going back-to-back days against Baylor, against the Spartans, then the Bears, and the Rams.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's the Tigers, or the Old Dominion.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure.
Also with Minnesota, there's probably a good chance Minnesota won't be that good, because I know what you do each season prior may not have a bearing on your team, but each year Minnesota under Rich Pitino has been getting pretty weaker and weaker. They're just going down in wins. I don't know what they're going to be this year, but hopefully that trend continues and we could snatch a win against a Big Ten team.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be able to brag to our friends over at BT Powerhouse about that.
Yeah.
All right. Should we hop into the questions, or does anyone else have anything they want to touch on here?
Anything else on recruits?
I don't believe so. I think we're pretty
Yeah,
set.
because I mean, I guess we could. Yeah, because if we were to touch on anything, it would probably be either Freudenberg or Tariq Owens, the transfer they got from Tennessee, which we'll be profiling later on. Spoiler alert for that. I feel like we've kind of pretty much hit every mark. We talked about Pons. If you want to, I think we can jump into the questions. That'd be okay with me.
All right, sounds good.
All right, let's see here. How and why will DePaul beat St. John's on New Year's Day? You know that I don't. I don't know for sure that they will. I mean, it actually should be a better game than the past couple of years. I think both teams have gotten better. A lot of good guard play between Kane and Garrett, and Pons and Levette.
If DePaul wins, it's going to be a very low. I think if DePaul wins, it's going to be a very low scoring affair with both teams just completely off.
Yeah,
that'd be my prediction for that game. But I agree. I don't think DePaul will win that game this time around. Hopefully.
I'm actually a little curious as to see the attendance at that game, since they're going up against the Rose Bowl and all those other games.
It's probably not going to be that well viewed. I know I'll be watching it, but yeah, I don't really expect. It's at 4:30. That game? No, wait, that's the other game on the 16th.
Yeah, I think it's at 2.
It's a 2 o'clock game. Yeah, no one's watching that.
Yeah, so that's all right, let's see. I know we got a couple starting fives, but I was saying we could do that last since we have multiple. How many wins this year? Like I said, I think 14, 15 would be ideal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know I went with 12, but the 12 to 15 stretch is pretty good.
Yeah.
Indicator.
I will concur on that. We will have a consensus here.
Best newcomer, I think, will probably end up being Pons, but there's a chance that it's Marcus Levette also, or one of the other guys we touched on in Freudenberg and Tariq Owens. But I'll probably go with Pons.
I'm going to go with the Levette.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's fair. Chris?
I will go with I'll go with Pons, who's definitely a solid choice for Big East Freshman of the Year. Though I'm interested in seeing if Marcus Levette will be eligible for that award, even though he's not a technically a freshman. He'll be a redshirt freshman based on academic eligibility. So
Yeah. Best returning player. This one's interesting because there are three guys you could pick. I think I'm going to go with Mussini, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's one of the two bigs.
One thing I'm gonna go with Sema. That's my pick for best returning player. But I am curious. As an aside, I am curious to see Mussini once he gets slotted back to his more natural position, how he plays more off the ball and doesn't have to bring the ball up court. That's just my aside point. But I'm gonna go with Sema. I'm really interested to see how he does in his second year.
Yeah.
yeah, I will go with Sema as well. Had the highest defensive rating of anyone on the team, although it was quite high. It was at 102.2, but that's probably mostly due to everyone else around him, because in leading in that was both Sema and Yakwe, both those stats coming from sportsreference.com. But yeah, I'm very high on Sema and Yakwe in general as a front court, and we'll get to that when we go over our forwards and centers rankings. But I will side with Sema, though. I do agree with Andrew in that it will be fun to see Mussini in his natural position.
All right, and then will they miss Slice as a recruiter? I don't think so, because they still have what's his name? Matt Abdelmissa.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's really the point man in terms of recruiting. I think he was at Iowa State, and I think he still probably is here. But yeah, I mean that's just. I think between Mullen and Matt Abdelmassa, they have enough recruiting talent.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have a very mixed opinions about Slice, mostly because he was head coach of where I went to college, but that's an aside point. He was not a good coach. But I think he did bring some very interesting talent too. But I agree. I think I'm gonna butcher his last name, Abdullah Masima. Yeah.
Abdul Massa.
Abdul Massa.
I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not 100% certain though.
I know I've misspelled his name many times, and just cannot pronounce it. But Coach Matt, I agree. I think he's the point man. What he did at Iowa State under Hoiberg was great. And he's a good guy for Mullen.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be missing much when it comes to Slice. I'll just nod my head and agree with both. So.
All right. Moving on here. Can Pons and Levette coexist as scoring guards?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can.
I think one of the I don't know if it's great yet, but despite Levette not playing last season, him being around the team for a year is an addition that's great because it helps him integrate into the team easier and also allows Pons to bridge the Pons as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right on.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they can't coexist for sure.
All right, let's just hop into the starting five now. So Andrew, if you want to start with your starting five.
Okay, my starting five is Sema at center. Then after that, I'm gonna stick with Yakwe, and then move over to Here it is. Okay. 5 is Sema, then go Yakwe. Slide Musini over to the 2, put in Lobit at the 1, and then 3, hopefully I wrote this down right and not just pontificating random stuff, Ellison at the 3.
Yep. All right.
All right, that'll work. I'm gonna say that it's going to be Lovett at probably point guard, and then flanking him will be both Pons and Musini, and then down low it'll be Yakwe and Sema. So the same as Andrew, except I just have Pons in the lineup and Ellison coming off the bench is probably a 6-man.
Yeah, I think I have to go with Chris, but I think either Ellison or Pons could be a very valuable asset off the bench for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I have to add about Ellison, I know he had a bad season last year, and saying bad for St. John's last year is kind of course, but I think we didn't get to see enough of his talent, and hopefully, like, either with him or Pons, like, there's a trade-off between the both.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Andrew, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was great to be on, and can't wait to be on again. And best of luck with the podcast going forward.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Yep.
All right.
You want to take us out? Or?
Yep. So, thank you for joining us here on Volume 1 of our season preview series here on the Big East Coast podcast. Be sure to stay tuned for future podcasts as we tumble through them. I believe next up will be DePaul, and you said that would be Monday?
Yeah, should be Monday, yep.
All right, so we'll be back recording live for you on October 3rd, day before the postseason starts. With DePaul stuff, we might have a guest or two on for that. We'll be sure to keep you in the know about that, and be sure to talk to our staff as well. Because we had, surprisingly enough, when you talk about being featured on podcasts and stuff like that, your staff will jump at the opportunity to. We had a lot of people take that bait yesterday.
Yeah, they were really into it.
So expect guests to be a fixture on this podcast going forward for the season preview portion, and then when we do that in the regular season too, we hope to at least, depending on everyone's schedule. It'll probably just be a once-a-week thing. Maybe an additional one slot in the middle of the week too, just in case with what happens and what goes on. But anyways, that wraps up Volume 1. Like we said, just be sure to listen and subscribe on iTunes to get it on. I'll be making a logo probably today for it. And for Rob, I'm Chris. We're signing off here. Have a good day, everybody. And be sure to stay tuned with Big East Coast Bias as the season preview progresses. Thank you.